not for hitting.
Hands are not for hitting.
Words are not for hurting.
Words are not for hurting.
My hands will not commit violence.
My hands will not commit violence.
At Nowlan School.
At Nowlan School.
Hi. Hands are not for hitting. Hands are for playing board games. Hands are not for hitting. They're for doing push-ups. Hands are not for hitting. They're for helping. They're for clapping.
Hands are not for hitting. They're for hugging.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting.
My hands will commit no violence.
My hands are good for planting. My hands are good for writing a foreign language. For petting puppies or kittens. My hands are good for horseback riding. For science experiments. For braiding hair. My hands are good for playing football.
Playing basketball.
For playing goalie.
Petting my dog.
My hands are good for sharing. For loving animals. My hands are good for hugging. My hands are good for writing.
My hands are good for drawing.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting. My hands will not commit violence.
Hands are not for hitting. Hands are for eating, reading, playing, painting, coloring, working, and playing, and swinging.
Putting your clothes on.
Hands are not for hitting. Hands are for painting your nails and brushing your hair. Hands are for painting, swinging,
Game Boy, Pokemon, juggling, playing Game Boy, and PlayStation 2. Hands are for throwing, catching, playing, and coloring.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting. My hands will not commit violence.
Not for hitting. Hands are for
petting animals.
I'm ready. Hands are for shaking. Hands are for hugging.
For playing on the computer, for planting crops and flowers. So you could eat and you could shake hands and you could do your homework. Hands are not for hitting, they're made for shaking hands.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting. My hands will not commit violence.
Hands are not for hurting, they're for shaking.
Hands are not for hurting, but writing. Hands are not for hurting, but they are for hugging.
Hands are not for hitting.
They're for touching, but not hitting. Hands are good for to jump rope. Hands are good for playing, for writing, drawing, and eating. Hands are for picking up the things you need.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting. My hands will not commit violence.
Hands are good for shaking hands.
Hands are for eating.
Hands are not for hitting, they are for writing.
Hands are for helping someone when they're down on the floor or for helping pick up things that make something a mess.
Hands are for helping you to read.
Hands are for helping each other. Hands are for shaking.
Hands are for writing. Hands are for helping people up on the ground. Me? Yeah? Okay. Hands are not for hitting, hands are for giving high fives.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting. My hands will not commit violence.
Hands are good for to write. Hands are good for shaking hands. Hands are good for drawing. And hands are good for helping people out.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting. My hands will not commit violence.
Hands are not for hitting. They're for shaking. Hands are not for hitting. They're for playing instruments. Hands are not for hitting. They're for using signs. Hands are not for hitting. They're for writing. Clapping hands.
They are for picking up your foot and eating.
Hands are not for hitting. Words are not for hurting. My hands will not commit violence.
Hands are for playing sports like football and baseball and writing. Hands are for shaking, not hitting. Hands are for caring and sharing and petting your animals.
I will use my hands for baking cookies.
For playing with a ball. I will use my hands for hugging. I will use my hands for clapping.
For playing basketball.
I will use my hands to pet animals. Playing Game Boy Color. For playing on the playground. For writing poems. Playing an instrument. For riding a bike. I will use my hands for playing the video game. For sharing toys. For writing stories. I will use my hands for eating food. For working the computer. I will use my hands for catching the phone.